Well, good morning or afternoon. It's 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and this is the We Are J6 weekly live stream. And we are very glad that you guys are all here. Thank you for joining us again and sharing your time on a Saturday. Thank you for your continued participation in this effort. We are, again, really glad you're here, really grateful that we have this community for support. And I'm going to introduce the guests we have on this week momentarily, but just want to ask everyone to continue sharing the mission of wearej6.com right now if you are watching, and if you can just retweet, reshare, etc., to let people know that the We Are J6 community is gathered again, and that we are looking to invite everyone into this mission to deliver restorative justice, both for those directly involved in January 6th and also the country at large, because of the really significant implications of that event in the last number of years, as we will continue to discuss like we have been every week. Just to get us started, though, we have committed to inviting God into this space. We're going to continue to do that every week, and hopefully in everything that we do in our individual lives and as a nation, marking this new golden era, which we're very grateful for and excited about. So with that, Heavenly Father, we invite you into this space, into this live stream, into this moment in time. God, we invite you into our hearts and into our minds and into this conversation. We ask, God, that you would really infuse us with wisdom and with discernment. We ask for your Holy Spirit, God, to fill the thoughts that we have and guard the words that we speak and the actions that we plan to take. We cannot succeed without you, God. That is my belief. I know that to be true. And so I come to you, God, in humility to say that we have great hopes and dreams for our lives. We have great hopes and intentions for the issues and problems that are at hand right now, but we know that our success only comes with you. So God, we invite you into this space. We ask for your mercy and grace in dealing with all of these issues and struggles. We just pray right now for, I believe there are 3 remaining hostages still in prison. We're very close to getting everyone out. We ask for your mercy, God, in completing that mission, as well as the mission for restorative justice that we've gathered weekly to discuss. And so we just thank you for every person participating, sharing in this, for their sacrifice and their time and just their life stories that you are redeeming one by one and together as we gather in this community. We thank you for all those things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amazing. So joining us today, let's see if I can do this nicely. I'm going to drop that and see who we have. So just welcoming back to the live stream, we have Dr. Simone Gold, another member of our steering committee at We Are J6. We also have intrepid independent journalist Ann Vandersteel. We're very glad to have joining us. And also Captain Chris Cooney, a former defendant, now J6 patriot, and a staunch member of our We Are J6 community as well. And I believe we may or may not have another J6er, Bobby De Gregoris, joining us, but he is on the road, so his transmission might be interrupted. Just to get things.
We lost our host.
I'll just jump in while John gets reconnected. Not sure what happened there, but he'll join us in a moment. Just to review for people, we typically start off obviously with our prayer. John opens, he talks a bit about the mission in general. Then I usually talk about the legal. John, I was just saying that I'm not sure what's going on with John, but we usually then start with the legal, any kind of legal progress, legal news. So I'll just jump into that, and then John will resume when he comes back. So for those of you who were not here last week, I said last week, and it continues to be true, that I speak with different attorneys about the legal possibilities to review what our legal objectives are. We want to work with the correct legal team to eventually get a settlement, a kind of conversation, negotiation, discussion with a friendly administration. As I mentioned last week, and I'll probably say every week, it is difficult to find the right attorneys for this. First of all, they have to be politically aligned. They have to have been demonstrated a commitment to the J6 community prior to this happening. So that already reduces the group. And then the other piece that's been challenging is not working with attorneys that will over legalize the situation. In other words, I've been involved in a lot of litigation the last few years due to COVID, and I know what can happen when lawyers really focus, on the complaint and the legal process in court. Our intention is to have a settlement with a friendly administration. So we need lawyers who are comfortable, confident, brilliant in the law, but also very comfortable in the political realm. It's honestly, this is 50-50. So it's not a quick decision. I've actually been thinking and talking with people since January, and I believe we have found the right people for myself. And I'll repeat what I've said since the beginning, actually what the steering committee said since the beginning. We don't decide for anybody else. What we want to do is give you our best assessment, knowing that we're spending a lot of time thinking about it, especially me with my legal background. I care deeply about who we pick, and where the case is filed or potentially filed, how the thing is written is all really, really important. And that's my role in this group, is to do my best assessment in this area. And then I'll share that with you so that everyone in J6 doesn't have to reinvent the wheel and do this for themselves. We don't make the decisions for any other person. We're just going to give you our best advice just because this means a lot to all of us. So I thought perhaps I might be telling you today who I personally would be going with and recommending, but give me one more week and I am 95% sure that by next week I will tell you who and why I've selected and, what I would encourage everybody else to do. So just bear with me for another week. John?
Yes, thank you for that update, Dr. Gold. Like she mentioned, it's been a very complex landscape and it's evolving. There are a lot of things still, changing as things move forward. We're definitely interested in further developments from the Trump administration and the government's opportunity and responsibility to dig further into the details about what happened on January 6th and in the years following. I noticed something on social media recently saying that the congressional subcommittee on January 6th is supposed to have been resumed or reestablished, and that has not actually gone forward yet. So I think there's a very important need for all of us as a J6 community, and We Are J6 can be a specific tool to help channel this, that we raise these issues and increase the temperature, because these are incredibly important things that need to happen, and they need to happen really now. They need to happen sooner than later, and there's a lot of work to be done. And those things will play into the full picture of what we call restorative justice and what we're looking to accomplish with this group, and generally, with the movement to reclaim the country and turn it back on the right track. So Ann Vandersteel has been kind enough to join us today, and she has been fearless, as she always is, in simply reporting on the truth as she discovers it. So she's been following J6 as an issue for a long time. And we would love to hear from your perspective, kind of where things have been going in the last couple of months, certainly since President Trump took office and started, executing a lot of items. But as it relates to review of the DOJ and the federal government systems involved in January 6th, and also as it relates to the continued development of the J6 community and various elements or factions of that. One of our primary goals at We Are J6 is to provide an umbrella type of group that's open and welcoming to everyone, in order to just help connect and facilitate various things that are going on. Like, for example, Jenny Cudd has founded the J6 Road Home Project, which is incredibly important for those who are currently in a position of substantial need, existential need related to housing and so forth. So there's a lot of those efforts going on, and this group is designed to help facilitate, connect all of those things. So, Anne, please share what you have been noticing in the last few weeks.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And this is a great group and a great discussion to have as you bring, people that have been impacted by J6 from all over the country, not just those that spent time in prison or were persecuted or even had visits from the FBI, but I mean, everybody that, basically lived in fear that one day they were going to get that no-knock warrant at the door and flash banged and guns in their children's faces. I mean, the terrorism is real. And I've watched tons of footage, and I want to give kudos to Ivan Raikland because he is one of We the People, and as a constitutional attorney and a former Green Beret, somebody who continues to serve this country, he's done a great job of doing the work that we hoped our elected officials would be doing. And so the last 3 months has really been about the people rising up, organizing, and being very vocal to facilitate the pardons and the commutations and the release and the continued awareness campaign of those that are still being held as political hostages, because the previous administration, threw all kinds of legalese at them that has nothing to do with the fundamental constitutional right of redressing one's grievances at the place where we supposedly have elected officials to listen to said grievances and do what we ask. And I don't think that anybody would find error in simply understanding that we were asking for a pause and making sure that when we were going to certify an election that was supposed to be free, fair, and of our own choosing, that we actually had the facts. And so we were really asking for just a 10-day pause to go back to the states and make sure that there wasn't anything improprietary going on. I think we now know there was. Clearly, the evidence is here, but translating all of that emotion, all of those facts, and bringing them forward to the last few months since President Trump was inaugurated, it was a collective breath that we were all holding. Was he going to pardon? And the fact that he waited till almost the end of day to make that announcement and to sign everything and to move forward was breathtaking. I think everybody was wondering, was he really going to do it? We all felt he was. But sadly, there was just things because of the legalese, and Simone being an attorney can speak to this. I mean, it's a word salad of language and charges that were thrown at people. And they brought a lot of things in that were, really fruit of the poisonous tree, that they tried to detain these people further. And people are like, former Green Beret Jeremy Brown, here's somebody whose story has been viral for 4 years. And he clearly has evidence of being set up by the FBI, and who then went back and planted evidence as proven by DNA of the said evidence that didn't even belong to Jeremy Brown. And, to have this drug out publicly served two purposes. One, it's demoralizing because it demoralized Jeremy and everybody close to him and the people that were trying to help him. But it's also demoralizing to a country that doesn't fully understand. There's still maybe some questions whether what happened on January 6th was really an insurrection or was it a Fedsurrection, as they're trying to get up to speed, because maybe these are people who just can't be bothered with politics and news. So it puts fear into they've been dumbed down to believe, through the lack of civics in our educational systems, that the government is the be all end all and they get the final say, and that we are subservient to them, when in fact the exact opposite is the case. We are the boss, there to execute what we want. And that has not happened for some time. So we are dealing with a mishmash of uneducated people, not stupid. They just don't have the information. They're ignorant to the facts of what's really supposed to be transpiring in America. And that produces fear. You've got a weaponized judicial system that's completely lawless. Our judiciary is out the window, gone. We don't have anybody standing up for our constitutional rights to a jury trial of our peers. Our Fourth Amendment's right to all this has just been violated. Constitution and Bill of Rights means nothing to the people that have, quotes, been in power. And this has sort of been the steroidal injection of information into the ethos of the conscious of America since President Trump came into office. It really all kind of came to a head very, very quickly. And what we now see is the only people that are really complaining are the media, the mainstream media, that is. And of course, the few left that are sucking off the teat of the American taxpayer, i.e. the federal workforce, which is being brought into question by a microscope the size of we the people under the name of Department of Government Efficiency. And Doge has been one of the best things that's ever happened to this government and to our country, in fact, because it's what Elon is doing is he's doing the work that we the people should have been doing this whole time. But again,
Mhm.
going back to our lack of education, we didn't know that that responsibility really did lay within us. We thought if we elected people, they were going to do what they should do because they're law abiding. Well, we've now learned they're anything but law abiding, the biggest grifters and con artists and thieves on the planet. And they're running, human trafficking, and they want to lock up anybody that will dare speak the truth and challenge their authority. So I see the last several months of this Trump presidency as just been everything that we've been witness to for decades kind of coming to a head very, very quickly. And the J6ers were really standing in the gap for all of us, no differently than the Paul Reveres of the world that were running, around saying the redcoats are coming. And I feel a debt of gratitude to the J6ers. I feel a debt of gratitude to anybody that would stand with them and speak on their behalf when they were locked up. But I also understand the pain and suffering that people went through that weren't locked up, because I can tell you from personal experience, we made adjustments in our life, putting our valuables away somewhere they weren't on property in case we ever got that no-knock warrant, because we were there. We saw what happened, and anybody that was in DC that day got arrested. If they could track you down and find a reason, they tried to arrest you. So it's been an odyssey, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's profound to see the arc of the journey that we've all been on individually and as a country through this experience. As we keep reminding each other and encouraging everyone when we gather on Saturdays and when we share on social media and advance the mission and the agenda of this group, We Are J6. This is a community of people that have been affected by this issue. And one of the lasting effects is the chilling effect and the culture of fear and intimidation that we've all been really brutalized by as citizens, targeted by a government, weaponized government. So I think it's important that we're continuing to gather, share, encourage each other in terms of talking through that and really committing to pushing back against those tendencies and that self-censorship. So it's really critical for us to continue inviting others to step into the sunlight, step into the spotlight, share the pain, share the stories, share where we are on the journey. So we do want to continue to be building those bridges and facilitating those conversations. It's another reason why I'm just grateful that people are coming every Saturday to this and helping us to expand the tent and grow this movement for not only victim recovery of the specific J6 former defendants and their families that have suffered so much, but also rehabilitating our understanding and our exercise of our fundamental God-given and constitutionally protected rights of free speech, of free assembly, and so on and so forth. Captain Cooney, would you kind of give us an update on what you've been observing over the last week or two throughout the American fight, and of course the effort in related to J6 for restorative justice?
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me on, John. One of the biggest things I've noticed in the last 2 weeks, and Ann touched on this, and so have you, is there's been a lot of infighting, right? One thing that I like about We Are J6 is that we come together under an umbrella that we are not just American citizens of this great republic, but we're also J6ers, or we are people fighting for J6. We're fighting for those constitutional rights. The one thing that I would encourage everybody to do is to find somebody that has a voice, come together under this umbrella, and really just try to unite this country, because we as a J6ers, as Ann had said previously, we're a group of people that stood in the gap. And right now I'm seeing that gap widen because there's infighting, who's going to be the face or who's getting what. We just need to come together as a people. And that's the biggest thing we can do to make this a successful journey together as a people is come together and unite under a common cause, that we need to bring our government back down to base level, that we need to make this American country great again, a republic like it was intended by our founding fathers.
Yeah, well said. It's so important. It's almost becoming kind of the most central theme in the last few weeks, is just realizing that we won a huge battle November 5th, and an even bigger battle really on January 20th. But the war is still raging, both for J6 and for America. So it's really important to understand where we are in the plot here, and how important wisdom and grace and unity and solidarity is going to be and continue to be as we move forward. I just want to encourage folks, one of the really key elements of our mission here at We Are J6 is to share the truth, share the stories of what all individual J6ers have been experiencing and enduring. And we are working to develop this into a series of persecution testimonials. So essentially about 5-minute video stories of what has happened to you. We have been talking about this for a number of weeks and have sent some emails with instructions on how to assemble the materials for that in an efficient and simple manner to make it easy for you. We've seen some submissions, but not as many as we want to see, of course. So we'll continue to send those email reminders, and we just ask everyone that was a J6 former defendant to consider sharing your story, so that we can help to educate the public and build awareness and build support for the things that clearly need to happen. So if you know other J6 defendants that are looking to do that, please invite them in. You can share that email. We'll continue to send the email out requesting for you to submit your video materials. It comes from info@wearej6.com. You're also welcome to email us at that address. And of course, the main thing is we just want to continue to encourage people register at the website and build that tent, build that movement, expand the mission that way. So wearej6.com. You can register there as a former defendant or as a general public advocate to help support the mission. Dr. Gold, did you have any thoughts related to where we are with gathering and reporting on details, related to the table of harms, related to how we can best summarize people's stories along with their videos, to build that library that we want to start including on the website, and also how that might connect with our legal strategies?
I know that this probably feels like it takes a long time. It feels like that, to me as well, and probably to most of you. I can tell you that it is really hard for me personally to pick the attorneys that I personally want to go forward with, because I know the complexity, and I know you can win or lose based upon the strategy that the lawyer picks, and the strategies the lawyer picks has to do with their life experience and their prior cases and their knowledge. This is a particularly kind of tricky situation because it's really not just, filing a complaint, having pretrial motions and hearings. Our goal is really to sit down and have a settlement. So I'm just saying all that because it's been weeks and weeks of back and forth conversations with various people. And it's not going to be a single attorney. It's really going to be a group of attorneys that do this and the kinds of things that I'm looking for. And when I say because I act we all act on our own behalf as strongly as we can. And then I just want to share that information with everybody. So that's why I use the word because I'm trying to do the best thing for myself, which will do the best thing for everybody. So no matter who I spoke with, they all want to know about the harms that we've endured. And just for an example of one of the little areas of complexity, everybody off the top who hasn't been through what we've all been through thinks being in prison is the worst part. And there's no question being in prison is it's terrible. Many of us have been in prison. And, the probation and all of it was terrible. Isolation, all of it was terrible. But I do think a lot of us, if not all of us, understand that the harm really attached to being targeted by the government at the outset, just the indictment at the very beginning. So because once we were indicted, most or all of us ended up on government watch lists. We had difficulty flying. I know myself, and I know I speak for others when I say we got debanked. We've heard from some of you who couldn't do Airbnb business. In other words, that all started from the indictment. So the indictment isn't as, quote, harmful in the public's eye as being incarcerated is, right? People immediately understand how painful and punitive being in prison is, but they do not instinctively understand how life altering or life shattering just having been indicted in this particular case is. Normally being indicted is life shifting for people, but it's not life altering and it's not life shattering for most people who end up getting indicted in a regular situation. So even for J6 attorneys who have been on our side, this was very eye-opening for them. And I had to have pretty extensive conversations with multiple ones, because I said the amount of money we're talking about, it's going to be higher than people think, because the amount of harm that got attached to 1,500 people was with the indictment, because there was so much punishment after the indictment. I'm just sharing that one detail to explain to you how hard and laborious it is to make sure we get the right people, because some people will want to take an easier route and maybe slough off. Oh, he just got indicted, but nothing really happened to him. No, that's not true. For example, the FBI arrested some people the week Donald Trump took office. I mean, I found that amazing. I just saw that in the FBI Washington field office X account. Those people, even though nothing else happened to them but getting arrested, and I don't know if they went through violent FBI raids like we did, but landing on that list has now landed them on other lists and on defamation situations. So it's a process for us, and in this case, me, to convey to the lawyers what we're looking for and why this is a large group effort. So a couple of you commented on you want to see congressional hearings on this. So the lawyers that we'll hire also have to have been educated. This is not a pure financial settlement at all. There are financial expenses that have to happen for people whose lives were destroyed, but there's political objectives as well. So that means, God willing, congressional hearings. In my lane, impeachment hearing for judges. I'm very hot on that. So I hope people can see that finding the people who are not just ready and willing to sign, a check or bottom line is very different than finding the people who are going to fight in the trenches with us. And the other delicate area is negotiating the fee that attorneys will earn. Whenever you represent a lot of people, as all of us know from our life experience, there can be very large payouts to the attorneys that are involved in representing a lot of people. We all know that this would feel offensive and disrespectful to the J6 community if lawyers end up with a big payday and the average J6er does not. I mean, I'm trying to be careful how I'm saying it, but this is kind of a delicate conversation that I've also had to have, and I'm doing it for myself and on behalf of all of you. So this is why it is taking a while. I think you can see the complexity. We do. I'm just telling you that going down the table of harms, the lawyers, even on our side, have not considered most of the things that most of us have gone through. It's quite extensive what we've gone through as a group. And I think most of us have gone through about half of the things on the comprehensive list. It's quite extensive. That's just what I do.
To the extent that we're considering the effects of being indicted, as you said, that absolutely is a very critical point. We'll continue to articulate this point. It is another element of why the We Are J6 strategic alliance is really important, and why it can be effective to help collect the full body of all of those stories and experiences, so that the American public and so that the Trump administration in the federal government capacity can understand what happened, what was involved. Being indicted in the J6 witch hunt, which I think is an appropriate term, caused catastrophic damage to individuals and their families and their associates, such that we've been marked as a sort of pariah in society for really 4 years running now. with the full weight of the Democrat / uniparty, machine operating at hyperdrive speed. And J6ers have been, the tip of that spear, or, at the other end of a hammer. So simply being indicted has associated a J6er with this a public identity of being a domestic terrorist, a traitor to your own country, et cetera, et cetera. And this has very damaging and lasting effects beyond just getting a pardon and saying, well, dust yourself off and get back to your life, which of course is not realistic in many circumstances. So we understand that, but a lot of the country does not understand that. Even those who are on the conservative / Republican / MAGA side of the equation, there's still a ton of misunderstanding and false information and propaganda and narratives that we need to work to dismantle. And that's definitely at the heart of We Are J6. Also, what Dr. Gold mentioned related to legal strategies and considerations of a settlement and various other things. There's many things all on our hearts, of course. There's many components of what restorative justice means. But something that we have continued to talk about and really are even more firm in our belief as we move forward is that all of these objectives, all of these ideas, all of these hopes and dreams we have are absolutely bolstered by unity and expansion of our movement. So even when it comes to the granular of legal considerations with a settlement or what attorneys we might work with, everyone is an individual. We are advocating for your right as an individual. We are working to protect your rights as an individual to have all options available to you. And so we are not making a decision for any person or group of persons other than we're just gathering together as Americans. This is a free speech association, so that we can have the best possible information and be in a position to support each other. We may do different things, but there's still a very powerful opportunity for all of us within this umbrella to be united, to connect and collaborate and support each other. And I think that's very critical. The disturbances or the various issues that have cropped up over the last number of weeks related to infighting or tension or so on and so forth, I think this sort of highlights the point that I'm making. Those kinds of things are inevitable. They'll continue to happen, but we can very much be proactive. We can be wise, and we can be strategic in talking through those things, working through solutions for them, and continuing to just invite people, into a movement that we do have really fundamental shared values that we can all share together, regardless of how things shake out on various particulars. So just want to encourage everyone again that we do hold the rule of law as our sacred value. That is what we have in common. That's what we were fighting for on January 6th. That's what we continue to fight for. So we do want to maintain that standard for respecting the rule of law and upholding that for ourselves as individuals and anything that we're corporately working towards as well. And I think, Anne, if you would maybe just kind of give your outlook, like what you think that we as a community can be thinking about and working on in terms of advancing the mission in the public discourse related to what we want to be seeing as far as accountability for the government. We've talked about victim recovery and we're working on those elements, but the government accountability is also important. And I think We Are J6 and J6ers, wherever you are and whatever groups you're affiliated with, all of us coming together and working together are, again, the tip of the spear on advancing some of these efforts. I mean, we were personally harmed, but weaponized government poses immense harm to all Americans, whether they were associated with J6 or not. So I think we have a pretty powerful opportunity as J6ers to participate in advancing this movement of government accountability. But what are we looking at specifically, and what can we be doing in these coming weeks related to holding rogue prosecutors accountable. We've been talking for weeks about specific evidences from our trial transcripts and things that showcase, certainly partisan bias is not appropriate in a prosecutor, but especially outright lies and fabrications is a violation of their ethical duties, no matter what their political opinions might be. There's been egregious behavior by prosecutors. Some of them may or may not have been fired. Some of them, I think, are still there. And I know it takes time, so I'm not exactly saying that anyone is failing, but I think there's pressure to be applied, and there's things that we as J6ers can be doing. What are your thoughts about those?
Well, again, we talked about this a little bit last night at this incredible event here in Florida, but specifically the accountability piece does fall back on we the people. And so as we've, noted, we've had lots of different J6 groups that have been, coming, organizing themselves in their little groups, trying to help different J6 individuals and the team as a whole, really, to really affect, positive outcomes for everybody who has been impugned by a weaponized federal government. But I think what it comes down to is an awareness campaign, which is why this is an important broadcast, constant outreach to all the other organizations, some of the very big names out there, the Trennis Evanses of the world, the David Summeralls with Stop Hate, the Suzanne Monks who worked tirelessly to put together the pardon list and worked with Tamara Lee, who, created the Flynn Pardon of Innocence, which is what they modeled the J6 Pardon Project after. Really continuing to embrace those groups and bring them together and say, look, we have an opportunity.
And just 1 second. Bobby, will you mute yourself? Thank you.
Just bringing everybody together and say we have an opportunity of a lifetime to really impact and affect change. Right now, we're rolling into a 2026 election cycle, whether people want to even recognize that or not, because we just, got President Trump elected. We've got to be taking this moment in time to continue with our feet on the gas and running as fast as we can in an organized fashion to continue to detoxify that swamp in Washington, D.C., which is really nothing more than a group of criminals running around at this point. And if we wanted to strip it back to the Constitution, anyone who's an attorney up there shouldn't even be representing us. That's a fact. Setting that aside, we have a golden opportunity to really, I believe, elect people. I think we're going to see some major changes that are happening in state by state right now that are sweeping that will impact the outcome of our elections, meaning we won't be dealing with machines. But we've all these groups that are out there working, the election integrity group, the J6 group, the people that want to repeal property tax, the people that want to repeal income tax, all these different groups have to have respect for everybody else, continue to work as diligently as they are, but step back and see the big picture on how all these things really do come together as control mechanisms to, obliterate our freedom of speech, to strip us from our Second Amendment right to defend ourselves, to, impugn our right to privacy, a fair trial with our jury of our peers, all of these things. We need to understand the big context here and continue to work in these silos, but have respect for the other silos, because we do come together and knit that fabric of freedom, that blanket of freedom at the end of the day. So going after these corrupt judges and the Department of Government Accountability is something that I take near and dear to my heart. And through the Zelenko Freedom Foundation, we've rebranded under the name the American Made Foundation. And American Made Foundation is a C3. We also have an action arm, a C4, American Made Action. That arm is specifically going to be going after legislation as well as bringing accountability to the judicial system and removing these corrupt judges. We're starting in family law because that is one of the, if it's not the worst, I don't know what is. It's the worst case, worst example of what law is not supposed to be. And that's just literal tyranny in a courtroom and rape and disintegration of the family. So we are taking it upon ourselves, like Ivan Raiklin going out and doing these videos and calling out Barry Loudermilk and others, Nancy Pelosi and the Capitol Police. We, the people, have that responsibility. It says it in our Constitution, and we need to own up to it. We need to take our lumps. We didn't do our jobs. Now step into the ring. If you can't do it in front of a camera and you can't get up and run for Congress, then you've got to be supportive with your wallet or with your time on social media. And I think J6ers are better positioned than anybody else in the country right now to run for Congress, to run for a state House representative or state Senate position, to run for U.S. Senate. We need to primary and get rid of these people. And I think working with the election integrity group is starting to knit the J6 community in with election integrity so we can do what we set out to do, which was redress our grievances on the zero integrity of our election in 2020. Right. I think when the J6ers combine efforts with election integrity groups, it makes us unstoppable as the people who are the government. And then we have a shot at putting ourselves to represent, put our money where our mouth is. We went to the Capitol that day to say, stop the process. You don't have a quorum, number one, Mike Pence. Number two, the states have evidence of corruption. So we got shut down because of a weaponized federal government. We need to take it back. And the only way we can do it is to constantly work together and stop expecting Donald Trump to do something. President Trump's one man and he works for us. We tell him what we want. And if we don't get what we want from him, we elect somebody else. It's really that simple. It's not complicated. So it just means that we have to stop sitting back, popping popcorn and watching the show. We have to star in the show at some level, whether it's subordinately, in the background as a stagehand, whatever it is, we have to be part of the show. And so, that's where I am. And that's one of the reasons why I've taken it upon myself to step away from doing daily broadcasts, put out meaningful content when it's appropriate, but be a part of the solution. And that's when we decided we've got to just, attack this situation, which is corruption at the judicial level, so that we can, this can never happen again. It just simply can't happen again.
Agreed. And thank you for sharing that work, Anne. That's very important. We'll continue to have you highlight what your organization is doing there on those fronts. It's fantastic. And we do need a lot more of that. Like you said, it's our country. It's our job to get in this battle, each one of us in our own way. And part of that is simply just reclaiming our voice, especially as those J6 former defendants, J6 patriots that were physically and very powerfully harmed and touched by this. Many have been driven into silence and driven into, just positions of difficulty. So we want to continue to empower you to reclaim your voice, empower you to get back into the fight in whatever role or capacity that God has called you to and has equipped you for. It'll look different for each person. But we are excited to have Bobby DeGregoris on the live stream with us today. Bobby, please go ahead and share about yourself and your J6 story. I know it's been a very interesting story that I was able to highlight elements of, but we're glad to have you joining us even from the road.
Hey, thank you guys. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound fine, actually.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks for bearing with me, and thanks also for giving us a voice. It's been so long that all of us have been gag ordered. Many of us couldn't even speak to our families about what was going on. I've talked to a lot of people that were afraid to talk on the phone, or even afraid to just talk in their own living room after their raid. Just out of caution of having devices or anything like that planted. So just the fact that, we are J6 Alliance and some other groups out there are, on the airwaves, giving J6 defendants, giving J6 supporters like Ann Vandersteel a voice is huge and, a big step in the right direction. So I applaud you guys for that. So John mentioned I'm a father of 4 out of Loudoun County, Virginia. John shared some of the raid footage and a little bit of my story over the last couple months. So to make a long story short, on January 6th, I never actually made it inside the Capitol.
Wow.
Committed no violence, no destruction. So we found out that the FBI had been surveilling my family for, I think it was about 5 months.
5 months.
5 months.
Wow.
They were following us to the grocery store, following us to drop off our children at school, at sports practice, sports camp. There were notes actually in the surveillance notes. There was a guy literally sitting outside all day in a car outside of our house. And the one note that he had for the day was that I put an unknown item in my mailbox. There was another amusing note in there. Someone had actually tailed me to the grocery store to pick up like one of those mobile pickup orders. And they actually wrote that I combat parked in the grocery store mobile pickup aisle. Combat parked. So term used before, if that's a military term, I'm not quite sure. But I thought it was an interesting way to describe backing in to get groceries. And perhaps the most amusing note that I saw was someone had tailed me to the gym and was sitting in the parking lot outside the gym while I was in there getting a workout in. And their note was that I entered the gym with a blue shirt and exited the gym with a gray shirt on. So I don't know if they thought I was about to make my big move, coming out of the sauna, coming out of the shower. But you could see, and I know many of you are probably familiar with the extent that these agencies went through to try and paint us in the most negative light possible. Really didn't matter if all they had on you was that you drop your kids off to school every day and eat dinner as a family every night, which was another note. They're actually looking into the windows, looking in our windows, and one of the notes was that we were all inside eating dinner. So fast forward to January 23rd of 2023. And this is the day that the FBI field office out of Virginia announced their intelligence investigation into what they described as radical traditional Catholics. So the radical traditional Catholic, it was part of their broader investigation into racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists. The acronym for that, REMOVE. Actually remove is what they were referring to these subjects that they were gathering intelligence on. So why that matters is because they had been following me to drop my kids off at school. We do take our kids to Catholic school. They had even looked up the kids' schedules. So they knew when there was a school break, when we might be on vacation, and they would have seen even the classes that they take. Would have seen that they, took Latin and Excel, from an academic standpoint. So the radical traditional Catholic memo included things like you took your kids out of public school into private school, you attended Latin Mass or studied Latin, as it pertains to Catholicism. So on the same day, January 23rd, 2023, the same day that memo is announced, a Virginia judge signs off on our search warrant. On the paperwork, it called my case a national threat band 1 and a local threat band 1. There were seven different charges on there. The 1512, there was conspiracy, there was interstate travel to participate in a riot. And what's interesting is that this judge didn't wait. It was hours from when the radical traditional Catholic intelligence product was announced. Investigation was announced, to when this judge, I think it was actually 3:30 a.m. in the morning the next day, that this judge got returned the warrant. And I have all the paperwork on this. Happy to compare notes at some point with some of you, because I think some of you, or many of you perhaps, may have went through some of the same stuff. So 2 days later, January 25th, a 21 or 22 man FBI SWAT team storms my house, machine guns, silencers, the whole deal. I immediately peacefully surrender myself, as I know pretty much everyone else who experienced a raid arrest did, for the most part, in general. So I was in belly chains, leg irons, and handcuffed, taken around the side of my house and thrown into the back of a Ford Expedition. They were there looking for very trivial things: a jacket, a hat, sunglasses, a little Donald Trump button pin. So what I didn't know until later on is that after I had already been detained and put in the back of the car, surrendered myself completely.
Right.
They actually stormed the house, military combat style. Same thing, some of the service members and veterans may have seen in, overseas in the war on terror, on, I've heard it be compared to capture and kill, people who did combat tours over in the Middle East have compared it to, well, this is what, was going on over there when we were looking for actual terrorists. So they come into the house, and again, I'm locked up. I'm not a threat at all. Point guns at my wife in the hallway. They don't allow her to go wake up. We had 3 young children at the time, 4 now. Wouldn't allow her to go wake them up. So some of you have seen John Strand's thread. They're pointed guns into the baby's rooms, into my children's rooms, into the crib even. And what they took from our family that day, I should go on to say, from there I spent about 8 hours in the DC gulag. The one felony that actually passed indictment was civil disorder. So not even any, no assault, no 1512, nothing violent, just the civil disorder and 3 misdemeanors. And I was home later that night. But and to make a long story short, we were able to push things out. I went through a few different lawyers, had a couple bad experiences with lawyers, like many of us I know did. So we were able to push everything out. I declined the plea deal, which many of you I know have read those plea deals. It's would have been very hard to go ahead with the government's language and admit to things that I didn't do. So we ended up going with a stipulated bench trial that took place this July 2024. I was read a guilty verdict this past October, and I hadn't been due to be sentenced until February 7th of this year. So January 20th hits, the prosecutor in my case submits a motion to dismiss the indictment with prejudice, and here we are. I've had the opportunity to meet many of you in person at CPAC. I'm coming back from an event just now in Tennessee where I was with 20 J6ers and some of their family members. So I didn't go to prison. I've heard just horrific horror stories about it. But what they took from myself and my family all really occurred on January 25th, the day of the raid. And what they took was that period of time in my son's childhood where dad, they believe dad can protect you from anything. Dad's around, we're at home, nothing could happen. We're safe. There's no monsters, no reason to be afraid of anything. And the fact that I was locked up, chained up out in a car, well, they were being, had guns pointed at their heads and being ordered around, being ordered outside onto the porch. It was, sub-freezing temperatures that morning. And I wasn't there. I wasn't there to even explain what was going on, tell them it was going to be okay. I was nowhere to be found. And that's an important part of not just childhood. I mean, I'm in my 30s. I still think my dad, can do anything, save me from anything. So, we're very lucky. They're resilient boys. They're very, very intelligent kids. They've been thriving, in school, academics, and sports ever since. And look, having a gun pointed at you is far from the worst thing that has ever happened to children in this country. I mean, many of us know that far worse horrors are endured by kids, in many cases, right under our noses in this country. And the thing that bothers me the most is that all those agents should have been helping those kids and should have been going after the real monsters and the real terrorists and the real criminals.
Right.
Imagine if they were to put all those resources and all that money and all that manpower and all the strength of the intelligence apparatus that bear down on myself and on John and Dr. Gold and Captain Cooney. Imagine if they had actually turned that towards the actual enemies and the actual people committing harm to freedoms and to kids, to women, to individuals in this country. So I think that's the real message. at least from my story. I could go
Yeah.
on, as I'm sure many of us could. There's many different layers to all of our stories, but that's the main points that I really wanted to make on coming on today. And I do really deeply appreciate the time and putting this group together and having people on. So I'm willing to help out in any way that I can.
That's awesome, Bobby. Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Cole.
John, I just want to say, so I mean, Bobby, just the way you explain that, that small vignette of the harm to the child from not having a father around when that happens, that is an example of a very small slice that the average American absolutely can relate to, and that by itself would be a good 5-minute video, because it makes people stop. They can't see the big picture. It's too hard. It's too overwhelming. If 100 different people have those little 5-minute slices, people can really, really relate to that little angle. I just want to encourage you, and a completely random other subject, if you could mute yourself, Bobby, unless you want to say something.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
It's a good point. And I just want to say, because I forgot to say, Anne sort of alluded to it, our eventual outcome, presenting this table of harms, Pam Bondi is going to have a big role in this. We just don't know. It's a little bit of an unknown. I do think Trump will end up weighing in on whatever the final resolution is, but he has to also listen to his advisors, of which Pam Bondi is one, and we'll just see what happens. I mean, it's not, I would have preferred Matt Gaetz.
Yeah. Well, and to the point about FBI agents and their behavior, as you noted, Bobby, this is incredible. They were surveilling you, and you know this because of discovery in your trial.
Please mute, Bobby. Please mute until you talk.
From your trial, the discovery provided you with that information. So these FBI and government teams, these government stormtroopers is how they were acting, but these government groups were surveilling you for 4 or 5 months. That's insane. I know in my case, they were surveilling me in Beverly Hills in California for at least a week prior to my arrest. And you can see the surveillance photos of them in the bushes, watching you. And so then you think, well, you've done that for a week, or in Bobby's case, for 4 months. How do you then justify this violence? And how do you then justify this treatment of children as a separate matter, apart from the alleged target or suspect? It's just egregious behavior. It is totally unjustified. It's abhorrent. We should call it out as such. Yeah. And yes, it would be better if the FBI assigned their resources to actual criminals and bad guys and so forth. But also, we should expect all members of our government, and certainly those empowered with violent military weapons, to have ethics and to have standards that they uphold. And we know many stories. Some of these were captured very nicely, thanks to our friends Chris Burgard and Nick Searcy, with Capital Punishment and the War on Truth, and other documentary efforts to share stories where many of these violent FBI raids were clearly carried out intentionally, such that children would be traumatized, separated from their parents, perhaps delivered into the hands of CPS or otherwise very negative environments. And the subversion of the family in various ways is kind of an untold story, or a story that we overlook in terms of the harms that resulted from January 6th. And I think that's really important for us to recognize. I think it's really important to identify those harms, to incorporate, involve that in our discussions and pursuit of restorative justice, and also in the national conversation about how we expect our government to operate and behave, and how we want our society to proceed. Because we said the rule of law is a fundamental value of this group. And I believe all patriotic Americans would share that value. And I think another core value is the truth and recognition of the actual natural family unit, what that is. It's a real thing. It is central to who we are as Americans. It is central to who we are as humans. and it is the bedrock of certainly Western civilization. So I think those are really important things to highlight. But Bobby, thank you so much for sharing that story. It was very powerful, and it was very tangible. And we just hope that everyone listening and participating today, right now, we hope you're encouraged. We hope you're inspired, and we urge you to share the mission of this group with everyone you possibly can. We urge you to consider sharing your story. Just contact us, email us, participate in the social media community, wearej6.com. You can register there. And of course, wearej6 is available on X Twitter, and streaming on YouTube. So please continue to participate, share in those things. But we need Americans to hear these stories. We need Americans to understand the totality of what was involved, but also to have a moment to slow down and consider a particular element, a particular series of events, a particular kind of impact, such as what Bobby had just shared with us. So we're going to continue that mission in the coming weeks here, along with all of the other efforts that we're engaged in terms of coordinating with lawyers and policymakers and various things of that nature. And we just want to thank Ann Vandersteel for joining us and sharing the work of her organization. And for everyone that has joined us at We Are J6 over the last number of weeks, and hopefully we'll continue this in the future. We are committed to the effort, but there's so much work to be done. There are so many opportunities for all of us to come together and support each other and begin more fully exercising those rights of speech and of civic engagement. So we're excited about those opportunities, and we're really thankful for everyone that joined us today. We have reached about an hour here, so I'm just going to ask if anyone on the panel had any closing thoughts. We'd love to hear from anyone.
10 seconds worth. I hope to have an answer for you all next week as to which lawyers I think are the best lawyers to proceed. And that is my goal for all of us for next week. Thank you.
Awesome.
I'm just, as far as the American Made Action Organization, our C4, we're going to continue to pursue the corrective actions necessary to restore our judicial branch to what it is supposed to be, where it's truly an Article 3 court of the people, not these Article 1 administrative law courts where the people have no business in there. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's tremendous.
A wonderful, thank you, Anna. We appreciate that. And you've been such a courageous and valuable member of the MAGA movement and the reclamation of this republic. So we're very glad to have you today, and we'll see you again in the future, I'm sure, as we continue these efforts. Captain Chris Cooney, thank you so much for joining us as well. I think your courage and your dedication to your family through this has just been remarkable. It's inspiring to me. I am sure it's inspiring to veterans as you serve bravely in the military and share that heritage with many of our fellow J6ers. Please let us know if you have any closing thoughts as we look forward to this next week. The battle continues, of course.
Thank you. I appreciate being on here with such an amazing panel of people. No, everybody said everything absolutely amazing. So I would just encourage everybody, whether you're a J6er or whether you're an advocate, continue to grab people, bring them in, because the bottom line is this can happen again if we do not correct this issue now. And we do not need this, as Ann said, 2026 coming up really quick. If we get a hostile administration in or people into public service, this can't happen again. And we need to prevent this from happening to anybody ever again, regardless of who you are.
Amen. We can never let this happen again, but we can never succeed on our own. We understand as Americans that our sacred right and responsibility is the sovereignty of the individual. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Gold is always reminding us that the most persecuted minority is just that, the individual. So we value and protect those rights, and we honor individuals, but we also understand that, of course, God designed us to live in families and in community. And it's only in those connected environments that we can truly understand and exercise our full, complete purpose, and certainly to be the most successful and to thrive in our lives and of course, particularly to succeed in this mission that we are committed to delivering restorative justice. It's going to happen with unity and with solidarity. So I'm just going to urge and encourage everyone as we close today to just continue sharing the mission, sharing the message, and just open that invitation to every J6 former defendant, now J6 patriot. We are proud of you. We love and appreciate you. We honor you, and we want to just invite you into this group to whatever extent that we can empower you in your life. And also, of course, encourage the entire country as advocates of this mission and of this this heart and soul that we have for restoring justice and repairing the lives of those harmed, but also reclaiming our role as citizens in each of our respective capacities, that we can re-engage in that fight, re-engage in this country, and re-engage in this new golden age, which I think the best is certainly yet to come. And there's so much optimism and hope and excitement for the future that is real. Some folks did mention today about J6ers particularly getting activated and reintegrated into our, not only into their lives and in general society, but in the trenches in terms of policy and participating in a government of, by, and for we the people. So I do hope to see more excitement and discussions about J6ers particularly getting involved in races for public office. Some folks have talked about a J6 political action committee to support those efforts. So that those kinds of discussions I would also love to see fostered and facilitated here at We Are J6. So I will invite anyone listening to share this, that if you have ideas, if you have interest, if you have energy for these kinds of projects, for these kinds of efforts, let's talk about them, let's coordinate them, and let's find strategies to help us be successful in achieving those things. So that is definitely, that's definitely our mission and our mindset here at We Are J6. So I will thank everybody for joining us today and sharing your time. That is always the most valuable thing we have. And so we are grateful for that. And we just commit that we will continue investing our time and our efforts wisely, with a strategic mindset such that we plan to be successful. That is our mission and our hope. And of course, we always acknowledge God and praise the fact that He is God and that He has promised to be faithful in delivering justice if we look to Him for that and trust in Him for the final outcome. So with that, we will thank you all and invite you to, of course, join us next Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern, and throughout the week, continue to invite, encourage, share, and support at wearej6.com. Thank you guys so much, and God bless you. We'll see you next time.
God bless.